So let me ask you a question. Who actually runs a state government? I mean, when you really get down to it.
That's the perfect place to start.
Because while the governor is the official constitutional head, the person on the ground, the crisis manager-in-chief, is the chief minister. That office is really the center of gravity in any state.
It absolutely is. And today, we're diving deep into that constitutional reality, the executive mechanics, and, the political power that's concentrated in this crucial office.
And our mission today is very focused, especially for those of you preparing for competitive exams. We're giving you a precise, high-yield summary of M. Laxmikanth's Indian Polity, Chapter 31, the Chief Minister.
Right. Think of this as a shortcut to understanding those complex dynamics, focusing on the key articles and concepts that you actually need to know.
Before we jump in, though, we just want to take a moment to acknowledge you, our listeners. We know how much effort goes into studying this kind of dense material.
We do. And we're committed to keeping this content available. So if you find this deep dive valuable, and if you're in a position to, we'd humbly ask you to support the channel. Hitting that subscribe button or even joining our paid membership makes a huge difference.
And a huge, sincere shout out to all our existing members. Your support is what makes these deep dives possible. It's what funds the research and allows us to create this for everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. And please do take a second to like this deep dive and share your comments below. We really do read the feedback.
And don't forget, we've got resources for you. There are free notes and practice PYQs, previous year questions, on our Telegram channel.
And for our Legend YouTube members, we've got premium notes, extra PYQs, and even model mains answers over on our Discord channel. So you should definitely join us there.
Okay, let's set the stage. The constitutional context. The state executive is basically a mirror image of the union government.
That's the best way to think about it. It's built on that same principle of parliamentary governance. The chief minister's position at the state level is, it's entirely analogous to the prime minister at the center.
So you have the governor as the nominal head, the de jure executive.
Right, the head and law.
Yeah.
But the chief minister is the de facto executive. They are the actual head of the government. If you understand the president-prime minister dynamic, you're already 90% of the way to understanding the governor-chief minister relationship.
All right, so let's get into the specifics. Appointment, term, the key constitutional articles. Let's start with Article 164. How does a chief minister actually get the job?
So Article 164 is, it's very direct. It says the chief minister shall be appointed by the governor. But the really important part comes next.
Which is?
All the other ministers are also appointed by the governor, but, and this is the key, strictly on the advice of the chief minister.
So the governor can't just pick their own team?
Not at all. They have zero constitutional latitude there. The list comes from the CM, and that's it. This ensures right from the very beginning that the CM is the unchallenged leader of their executive team.
Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward. The governor appoints the leader of the party with the majority. We know it's not always that simple, especially in the states.
Exactly. And this is where the governor's discretionary power comes into play. It's a very scrutinized area.
Right, so under normal circumstances, if a party has a clear majority, the governor has no choice. They have to appoint the leader of that party.
Correct. No discretion there at all. Yeah. But, political reality creates a couple of situations where the governor must use their own judgment.
And the first one is the classic hung assembly. What happens then?
A hung assembly is when no single party or pre-poll alliance gets that clear, absolute majority. This puts all the responsibility on the governor. They have to figure out who is most likely to be able to command the confidence of the House.
So what do? Just pick someone?
Well, there are conventions. They might invite the leader of the single largest party first, or maybe the leader of the largest pre-poll coalition. But whoever they appoint, and this is crucial, that person then has to prove their majority in a floor test.
The confidence motion.
Exactly. And it has to happen quickly, usually within 10 to 30 days. The Supreme Court has said time and time again, the only place to test a majority is on the floor of the House.
Not in a meeting at the governor's residence.
Definitely not. The governor's discretion here is about finding a stable government, not picking their favorite candidate.
Okay, what's the second situation where the governor has to use their discretion?
This one is less common but can be very destabilizing. It's when an incumbent chief minister dies suddenly in office and there's no obvious successor.
A leadership vacuum.
A complete vacuum. The governor's first job is to ensure administrative continuity. So they might appoint a senior minister as a sort of caretaker CM just to keep things running.
While the ruling party sorts itself out.
Precisely. The governor would ask the ruling party to elect a new leader quickly, who can then come and prove their majority. So it's really only in those two situations, hung assembly and a sudden death, that the governor acts alone in appointing the CM.
Okay, moving on from the appointment, what about the oath? Before they start their duties, they have to make some serious commitments.
Yes. Two oaths administered by the governor, the oath of office and the oath of secrecy. And the content here is really important. It's a favorite topic for exams.
So let's break down the oath of office. There are four main promises. The first is about allegiance to the Constitution.
Right, to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India. It's the foundation. Second, they swear to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India.
That's a national commitment beyond any state or party politics.
It has to be. Third, they promise to faithfully and conscientiously discharge the duties of their office. So basically, to do their job properly.
And the last one feels like the core of good governance.
It really is. It's the promise to do right to all manner of people in accordance with the Constitution and the law. And here's the kicker: without fear or favor, affection or ill will.
That phrase says it all. It demands complete objectivity.
Complete objectivity. It's the moral framework for the entire executive branch.
All right, now for the most politically charged part. The CM's term in office. Is it a fixed 5-year term?
No, and this is a critical point. The Constitution says the term is not fixed. It uses that classic phrase: the chief minister holds office during the pleasure of the governor.
Which, if you take it literally, sounds incredibly precarious, like the CM could be fired at any moment.
It does sound that way, but there's a huge constitutional catch, reinforced by countless court judgments, especially the famous S.R. Baumai case.
And that catch is?
The governor's pleasure isn't personal. It's constitutional.
Yeah.
The governor cannot dismiss the chief minister as long as the CM commands a majority in the legislative assembly.
So the pleasure of the governor is actually the pleasure of the assembly.
That's a perfect way to put it. As long as you have the numbers in the House, you're safe. The CM's term is effectively tied to their majority. If they lose a no-confidence motion, then the governor's pleasure is withdrawn and they must resign or be dismissed.
That's a crucial democratic safeguard. It keeps the executive accountable to the elected representatives.
It's the heart of the parliamentary system at the state level.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the actual powers and functions of the chief minister, starting with their relationship to their own council of ministers.
In this sphere, the CM's power is, it's almost total. It starts with forming the ministry itself. As we said, the governor can only appoint ministers recommended by the CM. The team is entirely the CM's choice.
And once the team is in place, the CM decides who does what. The power of portfolio management.
Absolutely. The CM allocates all the departments: finance, home, education, you name it. And just as importantly, they can reshuffle those portfolios whenever they want.
Which is a huge political tool.
A massive one. You can reward a loyal minister with a key department or sideline a dissenter by moving them to a less important one. It's a constant lever of control.
And what happens if a minister just isn't working out or there's a major disagreement?
The CM has the final say. They can ask that minister to resign. And if the minister refuses,
Then what?
the CM can simply advise the governor to dismiss them. And since the governor is bound by that advice, the dismissal is a certainty. It ensures cabinet discipline.
Beyond managing individuals, the CM also steers the entire cabinet as a collective body, right?
Yes, they preside over all the meetings of the Council of Ministers. They set the agenda, they guide the discussions, and they heavily influence the final decisions. The CM's job is to guide, direct, control, and coordinate the activities of all the ministers.
To make sure everyone is pulling in the same direction.
Otherwise, you just have chaos with different departments working at cross purposes. The CM ensures there's a coherent government policy.
And this leads to that ultimate principle of joint responsibility, the idea that they swim or sink together.
Exactly. If the chief minister resigns, the entire council of ministers collapses with them, instantly.
So no minister can say, well, I disagreed with that decision.
Nope. Once a decision is made in cabinet, it's everyone's decision. If you can't publicly defend it, your only option is to resign. But if the leader goes, everyone goes. It enforces that collective unity.
Okay, now let's look at the CM's relationship with the governor. This is defined mainly by Article 167.
Article 167 is crucial. It positions the CM as the main channel of communication between the governor and the Council of Ministers. The governor, as the constitutional head, has a right to be kept informed.
And Article 167 makes it the CM's duty to provide that information.
It does. There are two specific duties. First, the CM has to furnish the governor with all information about the administration of the state and any proposals for new laws. It's a regular reporting duty.
And the second duty, it's a bit more subtle, isn't it?
It is, and it's a very clever check in the system. It deals with decisions made by a single minister.
So if one minister makes a big decision on their own,
If a decision has been taken by one minister, but hasn't been considered by the entire council, the governor can require the chief minister to submit that matter for the consideration of the whole cabinet.
that's fascinating. So the governor can basically say, hold on, this is too important for one person to decide. I want the whole team to look at this.
Precisely. It prevents a minister from going rogue and forces the issue back to the principle of collective responsibility. It's a check against unilateralism within the government itself.
What about the CM's power over the legislature's schedule?
The CM advises the governor on when to summon the sessions of the state legislature and when to prorogue them, which means to end a session.
So they control the legislative calendar.
They do. And even more significantly, the CM can advise the governor to dissolve the legislative assembly entirely, triggering fresh elections.
But as we discussed, the governor isn't always bound to accept that advice.
Correct. If the CM has already lost their majority, the governor can refuse. The idea is to see if another leader can form a stable government before resorting to the expense and disruption of a new election.
Let's zoom out a bit. Beyond these specific functions, the CM is the overall leader of the state.
Without a doubt. They are the chief spokesman of the state government. When they speak, it's considered state policy. During any emergency, a flood, a riot, the CM is the crisis manager-in-chief at the political level.
And they wear multiple hats politically.
Yes. They're the leader of the party in power in the assembly, which is essential for getting legislation passed. And they are the political head of the state's vast civil services.
And finally, their role in the federal structure is key.
Absolutely critical. The CM is a member of the Interstate Council, and very importantly, the Governing Council of NITI Aayog. Both of these are chaired by the Prime Minister.
So this is where state-level concerns get a hearing at the national level.
It's the main forum for it. It makes the CM a crucial link in the federal chain, ensuring states have a voice in national policy making.
Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into that idea of collective responsibility. It's enshrined in Article 164. What does it mean in practice?
In practice, it means the entire Council of Ministers is a single, cohesive unit that is accountable to the Legislative Assembly. If the cabinet makes a decision, every single minister has to stand by it, in public and in the legislature.
And if the assembly decides it no longer trusts the government?
It can pass a no-confidence motion. And if that happens, everyone has to resign.
Even ministers who are members of the Legislative Council, the upper house?
Yes, even them. The confidence of the lower, directly elected house is what matters. If that confidence is lost, the entire government falls. It's all or nothing.
But we mentioned they have a strategic alternative to just resigning.
Right. When faced with a no-confidence motion, the cabinet can advise the governor to dissolve the assembly. Their argument is essentially, this house no longer represents the people's will, so let's go back to the people for a fresh mandate.
A pretty powerful move.
It is. But again, the governor has to use their discretion to decide if that's the right course of action, or if an alternative government is possible.
Let's talk about the administrative side of things.
Hmm.
Article 166, the conduct of government business. This seems more about procedure, but it's important.
It's about legal validity. The first rule is that all executive actions of the state government have to be expressed as being taken in the name of the governor.
So the governor's name is on all the official orders, even though the decision was made by the CM and the cabinet.
Exactly. And to prevent every government order from being challenged in court, the Constitution adds a layer of protection.
Authentication.
Authentication. Orders are authenticated according to rules made by the governor. And once an order is properly authenticated, its validity cannot be questioned in court on the grounds that the governor didn't personally make it.
It's a practical rule to keep the wheels of government turning.
It would be impossible otherwise. Imagine the chaos.
Now, there's a very specific exception written into Article 164 for certain states. The tribal welfare minister.
Yes, this is a fascinating example of the Constitution being tailored to specific regional needs. Article 164 mandates that certain states must have a minister in charge of tribal welfare.
Which states are these?
Currently, it's Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, and Odisha. These states have large tribal populations and significant areas under the fifth schedule of the Constitution.
So this minister acts as a dedicated advocate for tribal interests within the cabinet.
That's the idea, to ensure that their unique needs concerning land, culture, and development are not overlooked in the policymaking process. And this minister can also be given charge of the welfare of scheduled castes or backward classes as well.
There was also an amendment related to this, right?
Yes, the 94th Amendment Act of 2006. Originally, Bihar was on that list. But after the state was bifurcated and Jharkhand was created, most of the tribal areas went to Jharkhand. So the amendment removed Bihar from this specific requirement. It's a good example of how the Constitution evolves with the country's geography.
Right. This is where we connect the dots for the UPSC exams, linking the CM's role to these bigger federal and policy issues.
This is the analytical part. You have to see the CM not just as a state executive, but as a key player in the entire Indian federal system.
Let's start with cooperative federalism and NITI Aayog. We mentioned the CM is on the governing council. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, you have to remember what Aayog replaced, the Planning Commission. The old Planning Commission was very top-down, very centralized.
It was often accused of treating states like passive recipients of central plans.
Exactly. NITI Aayog was created to change that dynamic. By putting all the chief ministers on its governing council, it's designed to make states equal partners in developing the national agenda.
So the CM's role is to bring their state's unique perspective to the national planning table.
Precisely. They are no longer just implementing central schemes, they are co-designing them. It's a fundamental shift from centralized planning to cooperative federalism.
And beyond economic policy, they have a similar role in bodies like the Interstate Council.
Yes, the Interstate Council and the zonal councils are all about reducing friction between states. They discuss common issues, border disputes, water sharing, things like that. The CM's participation is about finding common ground and coordinating policies with neighboring states.
We can also see the CM's power in action when it comes to implementing national socioeconomic goals, like land reform.
Land reform is a perfect example. The directive principles in the Constitution talk about creating a more equitable society. But how do you do that? It was the state governments, led by their chief ministers, who actually passed the laws.
Abolishing zamindars, setting land ceilings.
All of that. They took the abstract constitutional vision and turned it into concrete action that reshaped rural society. It shows the immense power of the state executive to drive social change.
Let's turn to a more sensitive area, the administration of scheduled and tribal areas under the fifth schedule.
This is a critical linkage, especially for internal security. The source material points out that the failure to properly implement the provisions of the fifth schedule protecting tribal land, recognizing forest rights, is seen as a major factor in the rise of left-wing extremism.
So administrative failure at the state level has direct national security implications.
It does. And the governor, usually on the CM's advice, has special powers here. They can direct that a central law should not apply to a scheduled area, or should apply only with certain modifications.
To protect the unique customs and rights of tribal communities.
Exactly. It requires a very sensitive and careful administration, led by the CM, to balance national laws with local realities.
And finally, we have to talk about the ultimate check on the CM's power, President's Rule, Article 356.
This is the constitutional nuclear option. When President's Rule is imposed, the CM and their government are dismissed. The Assembly is suspended or dissolved, and the governor takes over, ruling on behalf of the center.
It's supposed to be used when there's a breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state.
That's the ground. But historically, it's been incredibly controversial. CMs have often alleged that it's been misused by the central government for political reasons.
And this controversy led to calls for reform, particularly from the Sarkaria Commission.
The Sarkaria Commission made some crucial recommendations to curb the misuse of this power and to, smooth out the relationship between the CM and the governor.
What was the first key recommendation?
It went right back to the pleasure of the governor. The commission stated unequivocally that a governor cannot dismiss a council of ministers as long as it has a majority. If there's any doubt, the only way to test it is a floor test.
So codifying what the courts had already been saying?
Precisely. To prevent the arbitrary dismissal of an elected CM.
And the second recommendation was about the appointment of the governor themselves.
Yes, this was a big one. They recommended that the procedure of consulting the chief minister before appointing a governor should be written into the Constitution itself.
Why is that so important?
Because if the center has to consult the CM, It's less likely to appoint a purely political figure who will be hostile to the state government. It aims to make the governor a more neutral constitutional head, which would lead to a much healthier federal relationship. The entire system is defined by this tension.
So as we wrap up, let's just summarize the most critical takeaways. For anyone studying this, what are the absolute essentials?
First, remember the CM is the de facto head, the real executive mirroring the PM. Second, the governor's discretion in appointing a CM is very limited. It's really only for hung assemblies or a sudden death in office.
And third, the principle of collective responsibility. The cabinet is a team, and they swim or sink together. The CM's resignation means the whole government falls.
And finally, don't forget the CM's federal role. Their membership on bodies like the NITI Aayog Governing Council makes them a key player in shaping national policy. They're the pivot between the state and the center.
We've seen the immense power of the office, but also its vulnerabilities, especially to central intervention under Article 356.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to consider.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so India is often described as an indestructible union of destructible states. The union is permanent, but a state government can be dismissed. So if the governor can recommend president's rule, and the CM's term isn't fixed, how does our Constitution truly guarantee stability for the state executive? How does it balance the power of an elected CM against the oversight of an appointed central agent?
That tension is the core dynamic you have to understand. It's the central question in center-state relations.
It's what you need to master for any deep analysis of Indian polity.
That is the perfect thought to end on. And if you found this deep dive valuable, we'd really appreciate your support. Please take a moment to subscribe, and if you can, join our paid membership. It helps us keep making this content for you.
And once again, a huge thank you to all of our existing members. Your support is what drives this entire project.
Don't forget to like this deep dive and leave your comments. And remember, the free notes are on Telegram, and the premium resources are on Discord for our Legend members. Go check them out.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.